"You're being paranoid," everyone said. But when the pediatrician noticed my baby's rare blood type didn't match mine, the hospital launched an investigation. The CCTV showed my aunt in the nursery at 3 a.m. And she wasn't alone. The blood test results trembled in my hands as I sat in Dr. Morrison's office, trying to process what she'd just told me. My baby, the one I'd been nursing for 8 weeks, whose every cry I'd learned to interpret, couldn't possibly be mine. "That's impossible," I whispered, clutching 6-week-old Oliver tighter. "There must be a mistake." Dr. Morrison's expression was grave. "I ran the test 3 times, Melissa. Your blood type is O negative. Your husband Ryan is A positive. Oliver is showing AB negative. Genetically, that combination isn't possible. My name is Melissa, and until 5 minutes ago, I thought postpartum anxiety was making me imagine things. The nagging feeling that something was off, the way Oliver's features seemed so unfamiliar, how he never settled when I held him the way the nurses said he would. Everyone told me I was overthinking. New mothers often feel disconnected. My Aunt Patricia had assured me during one of her many visits. "You're just tired, sweetheart. All newborns look alike anyway." Patricia. My stomach churned as her name surfaced in my mind. She'd been so helpful after the birth, using her nurse credentials to check on us constantly, staying overnight when Ryan had to work. Too helpful, maybe. "We need to contact the hospital immediately," Dr. Morrison said, already reaching for her phone. "If there's been a mix-up." It wasn't a mix-up, I heard myself say. The pieces were falling into place with sickening clarity. My Aunt Patricia works at St. Mary's. She was in the maternity ward the night I gave birth. She insisted on taking Oliver to the nursery so I could rest. Dr. Morrison's hand froze over the phone. "Are you suggesting?" "I don't know what I'm suggesting," I interrupted, but that was a lie. Deep down, I knew. "Just please, call the hospital." Within hours, our quiet life exploded into chaos. Hospital administrators, security personnel, police officers. Our home became a command center for an investigation that would reveal the unthinkable. "Mrs. Harper," Detective Janet Sullivan said, setting up her laptop on our kitchen table. "We've pulled the security footage from your delivery date. I need you to watch this, but I warn you, it's disturbing." Ryan gripped my hand as the grainy footage began to play. There was the nursery, dimly lit, peaceful. The timestamp read 3:17 a.m., just hours after I'd given birth. I watched Patricia enter using her ID badge, moving with the confidence of someone who belonged there. But she wasn't alone. My blood turned to ice as another figure followed her in. Margaret Dalton, my mother's estranged sister, whom we hadn't spoken to in 5 years after a bitter family feud over my grandmother's estate. "Oh my God," I breathed. "What is Margaret doing there?" "Keep watching," Detective Sullivan said grimly. On screen, Patricia lifted a baby from one bassinet, the one labeled Harper, while Margaret went to another across the room. They met in the middle, and in movements so deliberate they couldn't be mistaken for anything else, they switched the infants. They swapped the ankle bracelets, changed the bassinet cards. Patricia placed the new baby in my son's bassinet, while Margaret cradled what had to be my real child. "No," I moaned, my arms instinctively tightening around Oliver. Except he wasn't Oliver, was he? He wasn't my son at all. "There's more," Detective Sullivan said, fast-forwarding. 20 minutes later. The footage showed Margaret leaving the hospital with my baby, walking calmly as if she had every right to take him. Patricia stayed behind, checking monitors, playing the devoted aunt who just wanted to ensure her nephew was comfortable. "The other baby," Ryan said, his voice hollow. "Whose baby do we have?" Detective Sullivan pulled up another file. "Jacob Winters. His mother Diana gave birth the same night. Single mother, no family support. She's been raising your son for the past 8 weeks." The room spun. Another mother had my child. Had been feeding him, comforting him, bonding with him while I'd been doing the same with hers. "Where's Margaret now?" I demanded. "Where's my baby?" "We're tracking her," Detective Sullivan assured me. "But Melissa, there's something else you need to know. We found communications between Patricia and Margaret dating back months. This wasn't spontaneous. They planned this during your pregnancy." She showed us printed emails, text messages that made my stomach heave. Margaret's bitter words about being cut out of the family, about how I didn't deserve the inheritance from Grandma. Patricia's responses, sympathizing, plotting. She never wanted her own children, one message read. But if she had Melissa's baby, she'd have leverage. A blood claim to the family money. They were going to use my baby to extort us? I said, disbelief warring with rage. It appears so. But something went wrong. Look at these messages from 3 days after the birth. I read Margaret's panicked texts. He won't stop crying. Something's wrong with him. And Patricia's response. All babies cry. You wanted this. Deal with it. She couldn't handle it, Detective Sullivan explained. Neighbors reported constant crying, Margaret looking haggard. She's been staying in a rental property about 2 hours away. We have units headed there now. I want to go, I said immediately. I need to see my son. That's not advisable. I'm going, I said firmly. 8 weeks. She's had him for 8 weeks. He doesn't even know I exist. As we prepared to leave, my phone rang. An unknown number. Don't answer, Detective Sullivan started, but I'd already accepted the call. Melissa? The voice was rough, exhausted. Margaret. I know they're coming for me. Where is my son? I demanded. He's safe. He's God, Melissa, I'm so sorry. I thought I wanted this. I thought it would fix everything, make me feel like I belonged in the family again. But he just cries and cries, and I see your face every time I look at him. Margaret, please. Patricia said it would be easy. That you had everything, the inheritance, the perfect husband, now a baby. She said I deserved a chance at motherhood too. But I'm not a mother. I'm just a desperate, pathetic woman who stole her niece's child. The line went silent for a moment. Then, he's at St. Gabriel's Hospital. I brought him in an hour ago. He's been running a fever, and I couldn't let him suffer because of what I did. I told them I was his aunt babysitting. They have him now. The phone went dead. The race to St. Gabriel's was a blur. Detective Sullivan called ahead, explaining the situation. By the time we arrived, hospital security and administrators were waiting. He's in pediatric ward, room 203, a nurse told us. He's stable, just a minor ear infection. But I didn't wait to hear the rest. I ran, Ryan beside me, following the signs until I burst through the door of room 203. And there he was. My son. My real son. Even after 8 weeks, even having never held him, I knew. He had Ryan's nose, my mother's chin. When his eyes fluttered open at the sound of my gasp, they were the same green as my father's. Oh, baby, I sobbed, reaching for him. My sweet boy. Mama's here. Your real mama's finally here. He fussed as I picked him up. Of course he did. I was a stranger, but I held him close, breathing him in, trying to memorize everything I'd missed. We need to handle the other situation, Detective Sullivan said gently. Diana Winters is on her way here with Jacob. She knows the truth now. The exchange was surreal. Diana arrived looking as shattered as I felt, carrying the baby I'd thought was mine. We stood in that hospital room, 2 mothers whose lives had been devastated by someone else's greed and delusion. I knew something was wrong, Diana whispered, tears streaming. He felt too comfortable with me from the start. No adjustment period. It was like he was meant to be mine. But he wasn't, was he? I felt the same about Oliver, Jacob, I admitted. Like I was babysitting someone else's child. The hospital social worker oversaw the exchange. It was horrible and necessary and heartbreaking. Jacob cried for me as Diana took him, while my son, we'd have to choose a new name since Margaret had been calling him something else, screamed in my arms. This is unprecedented, the social worker said. You'll both need support. Counseling. Time to bond with your biological children. Patricia was arrested that night at her home, trying to destroy evidence. She confessed eventually, claiming she'd done it out of love for Margaret, to help her sister have what she couldn't. But the prosecutors saw it differently: conspiracy, kidnapping, fraud. Margaret turned herself in the next morning, looking like she'd aged a decade in 8 weeks. I just wanted to belong, she kept saying. I just wanted to be part of the family again. The legal proceedings took months. Both women were convicted. Patricia got 12 years, Margaret 8. The hospital faced massive lawsuits for the security failures that allowed it to happen. But the hardest part was learning to be a mother to my son. We named him Thomas, after my father, after missing his first 2 months. Every milestone I'd celebrated with Jacob was a reminder of what I'd missed with Thomas. First smile, first laugh, the way he'd learned to sleep through the night. All of that had happened in Margaret's rental house, with a woman who'd stolen him. Diana and I started meeting for coffee, the only 2 people in the world who understood what the other was going through. We'd share stories of our sons, comparing notes on their personalities, their habits. Jacob still turns his head when he hears your voice on the phone, she told me one day, 6 months later. And sometimes, when I'm rocking him, I remember how you used to do it. Thomas has the same cry pattern as when he was with Margaret, I admitted. I have to remind myself that it's not rejection, it's just what he learned. Our families thought we were torturing ourselves, maintaining this connection. But it helped, having someone who understood the complicated grief of loving a child who wasn't yours while learning to love the one who was. Ryan struggled too. He bonded with Jacob, coached me through the early weeks of motherhood with the wrong child. Now he had to do it all over again with Thomas, who didn't know his father's voice, his smell, his touch. We'll make it right, he promised during the hardest nights. We have the rest of his life to make up for what we missed. My relationship with my mother imploded when she learned her sisters had conspired to steal her grandson. The family that had once dismissed my concerns as paranoia now dealt with their own guilt. Uncle Jeffrey, Patricia's husband, filed for divorce and offered to testify about her obsession with Margaret's rightful place in the family. A year later, at Thomas's first birthday party, his real first birthday, Diana surprised us by showing up with Jacob and a small gift. I wasn't sure if it was appropriate, she said hesitantly. But Jacob and Thomas, their lives will always be connected. Maybe they should know each other. Watching the two boys play, babbling in that language only babies understand, I felt something in my chest finally loosen. They'd been switched at birth, raised by the wrong mothers, used as pawns in a sick game of family revenge. But they were here now, safe, loved, where they belonged. You know what's strange? Diana said, watching them. I don't regret loving Thomas for those 8 weeks. It was real, even if it was wrong. I know, I said, understanding completely. Jacob will always have a piece of my heart. Patricia wrote me letters from prison, begging for forgiveness, claiming she'd been manipulated by Margaret. I burned them all. Some betrayals cut too deep for forgiveness. She'd stolen my son's first breath in my arms, his first weeks of life. All for what? Family politics and money? But as Thomas laughed, reaching for his birthday cake with chubby fingers, I realized something. Patricia and Margaret had tried to destroy us. They'd almost succeeded. But in the end, the truth surfaced. Love found its way. And 2 baby boys ended up exactly where they belonged. Even if the journey to get there nearly broke us all. To family, Ryan toasted, raising his glass. The real kind. The kind that doesn't steal babies. It was dark humor, but we'd earned it. We'd survived the unthinkable and come out the other side. Scarred, yes. Changed, definitely. But intact. And as Thomas smeared frosting in his hair, babbling mama for the 100th time that day, I knew that was enough. We'd lost the first 2 months, but we had forever to make up for it. The truth had saved us, even if it came 8 weeks too late.